Good evening. Good evening and welcome to the October 14th Village Board Work Session. This meeting is now called to order and we will begin with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for joining us. I guess we'll begin with mayor's and trustees' announcements.
Yes.
All right. Well, this has certainly been an exciting year already. It's in September, we welcomed Trustee Rika Levin to the board, and that appointment was made following a call to the public for resumes, and then we performed 9 interviews of the candidates who stepped forward, and we're very pleased to have Rika join us. And then we had the unexpected resignation of now former trustee Robert Durayo. So we have another vacancy on the board. This board has decided not to appoint anyone to fill that seat at this time. We will allow the election to unfold. And while it is never ideal to have elective positions filled by appointment rather than the will of, it's just never ideal for that, for positions that should be elected to be appointed rather than filled by the will of the voters. And so, if we were to establish a board of trustees where 40% of the representatives are by appointment, it's undesirable, but particularly with the election only 3 weeks away, it doesn't seem to make sense to us. So, there have certainly been circumstances in the past where a board has functioned just fine with 4 trustees for a period of time. Usually that's related to illness, but I think we're all pretty comfortable and confident that this is the best way to go forward. So, one of the other significant changes this year in the leadership of village government is in the position of village manager. There are two of the primary responsibilities of the Board of Trustees are to pass an annual budget and to set the big picture goals that the village manager and department heads will then implement. The overarching goal of this board is to make village government function efficiently and serve the public well. We work for you, the residents of Ossining. We articulated our goals to Abe Zambrano when we hired him to be our new village manager, and he is moving forward with implementing his plan, particularly for 2 departments he identified as his highest priorities for restructuring. Beginning with his own department, he has hired a new confidential assistant to the manager who will bring the skills needed for the village government, the village management office of today. That individual is expected to start in a matter of weeks. We want to be a community where residents know that when they visit the building department, they can look forward to receiving the help they need as they navigate the requirements for a permit or a certificate of occupancy or any particular undertaking for their property. And a more specific goal in this regard is in streamlining the process for when people come and work at the village, including digitizing forms and public information. The other priority that will be addressed is code enforcement, particularly in regards to overcrowded housing. Overcrowded housing is a complex issue that impacts the health and safety of the people living in these conditions, as well as our first responders and our community at large. The challenging nature of this issue is why many officials are reluctant to deal with it. It is certainly not unique to Ossining, and that means we can learn from other municipalities how to more effectively address overcrowded housing. Manager Zambrano's approach for how to improve the effectiveness of the building department took a different path when village manager Valerie Monastra left the village to take a position in the private sector. Her departure prompted a need for considering how best to organize the work of the planner. Just because a department has been organized in a particular way for the past 10 years doesn't mean that same formation is the best way to serve the village residents for the next 10 years. So Manager Zambrano is interviewing candidates to step into the position in a new way. Abe will bring in someone with a fresh approach, with the experience and skills to lead the work of a combined planning and building department. This board is very supportive of the restructuring that Manager Zambrano has proposed to us for the village management office, as well as the planning and building departments. And we look forward to the improved efficiency and service that will be provided to village residents with these changes. Others on the board?
Sure. I would just like to echo the mayor's statements regarding the changes that we're doing in village government. And I think that this is something people have heard me say before, but I think we all know the definition of insanity. And the truth is if you do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, that is crazy. So the truth is we do need to make some changes, and Abe is the individual, the person that we felt would be able to provide expertise and knowledge and the ability to execute on the changes that we want. So I fully support the mayor, and all of us support this initiative. And I stated last week that Abe Zambrano has my full support in his efforts going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of times we hear either by email, phone calls, or someone stopping you on the street, talking to you about the different issues in the community. How can we address these issues to make Austin better, a better place than what we have already? Essentially, I think we have a very unique opportunity right now in our building department where we can address a lot of those issues. I have worked in the past with our planning department and building department and assessor's office to try to put something together a couple years back, which gave the opportunity to have public information and what those departments do and how they work. That being said, there's always room to for improvement, and I think this is definitely the way in how we should be approaching that. So I'm going to thank our village manager to take this approach and see a unique perspective in how the planning and building department should be working together and serve our village residents in 100% in a better place. So thank you.
Thank you.
So for me, this is all still new. I think last week I said it was 3 weeks, so it must be 4 weeks this week. I don't have actually any history, so I don't know what to compare anything to, including all of the new people, myself and you and everybody else. My focus is really, I'm very focused on P&Ls and budgets and how they work, since I've had a lot of experience in banking and in managing budgets throughout my career. I laughingly said to the mayor that I've commuted for so many years that I feel a responsibility here at the table to also represent those commuters in our community, which I think about 25 to 30% who are usually too tired and are probably still sitting on the train when these meetings are occurring. So I'm going to take that seriously so that there's, I think, representation of the entire community, both on this board and through the municipality. So I'm looking forward to working hard to really look for opportunities to make the municipality, I think, just stronger.
Thank you. Manager Zambrano.
Thank you, Mayor. And if I may, I also have a statement before we get into the work session. First, I want to thank all of you for your support in some of the endeavors that I bring to the village to make village government more efficient. Over the past several years, the budget process in every municipality in New York State has become increasingly laborious and more difficult as a result of the 2% tax cap law and the more recently enacted tax freeze or government efficiency legislation. The village of Ossining has not been spared the task of cutting expenses. Today, we received an email from the New York State Division of Budget that the government efficiency plan that was filed jointly with the town has been approved. And actually, I want to thank our village treasurer, Tom Warren, whom I believe, oh, there he is, for having worked on that earlier this year. When the village board of trustees hired me to be Ossining's village manager earlier this year, was to, as Mayor Gowdy stated, to make village government more efficient, a task that I've taken seriously so far. and it will continue to. In preparation to be able to present the proposed budget within the aforementioned tax cap for 2016, I've started to evaluate several village departments early this year and have already put into place actions that have not only resulted in better services to residents, but have streamlined processes and efficiencies. The difficult task of evaluating staffing needs in the village manager's office was one of the priorities I'd set in order to reach the desired goals. However, staff evaluations are still undergoing and will continue for the next several months until the proper level of staffing is achieved. During the transition period and while the evaluations continue, we continue to depend on our veteran staff members, such as at the Operations Center, including village engineer Paul Frioli, among others. Not that you're all Paul, but you are one of the older employees of the village. In some departments, positions have been downgraded. In other departments, there's going to be consolidations of functions, as well as the merging of and reduction of administrative staff, administrative and clerical staff, in order to bring the necessary efficiencies. The 2016 budget will be filed with the village clerk's office on Wednesday, November 4th, and I intend to be able to deliver a budget under the tax cap to the Board of Trustees. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Okay.
So with that, actually, the first item on tonight's agenda, we had initially, we were going to bring you an update on the Spring and Main Street intersection. The engineer that we have hired has had some problems getting here, so we're going to go to the second item. And the topic is basically, we are proposing a public relations campaign that we have, when calling it Austining Where Culture Lives. We've been working with Co-Communications owner Stacy Cohen, who's here to make a presentation to the board. So with that, I'm going to hand the podium to her. So,
Let's see, how do we turn this?
yes.
I'm okay. Yep. Let's see.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it just,
Epson on the screen
Oh, you're getting a jump on this, but.
I was going to commend you on how quickly the presentation's being done.
Speed. Anyway, thank you so much for inviting me tonight, and you know I'm so glad to see many of you. Haven't seen you for quite a while, and as you know, the PR campaign that we kicked off in Austining a couple of years ago was Austining in 3D, and it was to mark the bicentennial. So when we were tasked with creating another campaign, and after having many conversations with Abe, we really felt that Austining Where Culture Lives really resonated with what we all want to do to bring out in Austining. And essentially what we're looking to do with this campaign, campaigns are built and they're meant to be engaging, bringing in the community, attracting visitors to Austining and also new businesses. And we really want to demonstrate the breadth of what Austining has to offer. And we're going to go into each of these areas separately. I have a slide for each. But basically, this campaign which we're proposing involves building a new logo. As many of you recall, with Austining in 3D, we actually created a logo for Austining in 3D, and we put it on mugs and bumper stickers and magnets and throughout the community. We also are proposing a launch event which would kick off the campaign, and also a video. And we brought a sample to show you of how we envision this video. We also would like some type of lifestyle guide which would showcase the restaurants and entertainment in Austining. And then, of course, we would bring this campaign into new and existing events. but branded with the campaign theme. So that could include your recent Chalk It Up event, summer concerts, the village fair, and then of course, advertising, which I just mentioned, could be anything from lamppost banners to magnetic bumper stickers. So let's talk about the launch event. We have a beautiful project that is up and coming. I remember it feels like just yesterday when we handled the groundbreaking of Harbor Square with Ginsburg. The date that we're proposing for this event is in the spring, and what we see it as is that attendees can essentially sample, Ossinings's cuisine. They can browse different vendor booths. We can invite, again, anyone who is in the village of Ossining to come and exhibit their wares. And again, we look at this event as really a launching pad. This is where we're going to debut Ossining Where Culture Lives. And again, we'll have an unveiling of the new logo and also the video. We also, to liven it up, we would love to get in some music from local artists, and then we can also give tours of Harbor Square, which hopefully will be done by then. So anyway, let's talk about the video. My favorite subject, and I'll tell you why. My background is actually in video. I started out my PR career at CBS in their video division. Video is incredibly engaging. So there's studies now, when you show video on a website, people stay longer and they come back more frequently. So what we'd like to do is to develop a short video, but again, professional broadcast quality. And it would allow us to showcase Ossining, Where Culture Lives, and help launch the event. The great thing about video is we would look to leverage it. You can get a lot of mileage from video. We could use it for television. We could use it for all the various social media platforms. Of course, there's everything from Facebook to Instagram to Twitter, YouTube, Vimeo, and I don't know if any of you have heard of the latest Periscope, which is live streaming video. I always say Instagram today, what tomorrow, so it's hard to, there might be something else in the spring, but we would have to take that into consideration. And again, we want to really capture the essence of Ossining through this video, so it can again, we want it to show the diversity of Ossining. Again, this all goes back to Ossining Where Culture Lives. We want to show chefs in the kitchen, people on the streets. We want to show the waterfront. We want to capture public events, historical sites, nightlife, and again, of course, the award-winning science program in Ossining. And I want to share with you a video that hopefully the sound is turned up. This is live from Ecuador.
Ecuador.
That wouldn't be bad. All you need is Ossining. I don't know. I'm just rethinking this, Abe.
Okay, the Beatles.
So again,
Yeah.
you may not
Feel
remember
that
my
alone.
presentation when you all leave, but I guarantee you'll remember the video aspect. So next up is, again, we've been speaking to Abe about this dining and entertainment guide. It's really a lifestyle guide. At first we were looking at just a dining guide, and then in speaking with Abe, we're like, well, let's open it up, because again, if this campaign is called Where Ossining Lives, we really want to showcase everything that there is in Ossining, from the restaurants, retail, cultural assets. We look at this as a bifold. Again, it's very preliminary, but I don't know if any of you have seen lifestyle guides. They're typically small books, I would say 8.5 by 6, around that size. And it would really make sense, of course, to partner with the Ossining Chamber of Commerce. And, the one benefit of these books is that perhaps we can monetize it. This is a potential revenue stream, getting listings and advertising from local businesses in Ossining. And again, we can certainly offer listings for free. That would just be like a basic, 3-line type of listing. But then there could also be, larger display type of ads, which would be a fee. Then, of course, we would, these days you have to offer everything offline and online at the same time. So we would make sure that the guide is available to download from the village and also the chamber websites. And then we can have different drop-off points of the printed copies, could be at the village hall and other key areas. And in terms of publicity, again, this campaign, Ossining, where culture lives, we have to make sure that, I always like to talk about the pulse of PR, because you can't just crank up the radio, you can't crank up the volume once. And similar to, kicking it off at a launch event, that's not enough. We have to keep it pulsing. So again, in order to get this out there on a regular and consistent basis, we would be sending out news releases on an ongoing basis, and media advisories. So we would like to invite the press to select events. Especially we want to get them all out for the kickoff event. Then we also want to do just targeted pitches. There's a lot of ways, that we work. PR news releases is more blanketed, but when we do targeted pitches, we'll just, customize one pitch and offer it up to, let's say, the Journal News. And then calendar items, just going online and actually we do the posting of all of the different calendar events. And in terms of advertising, again, there's, we would want to plaster Ossining with a campaign and make sure that it goes on all the lamppost banners, that all the cars in Ossining have bumper stickers. And it's really effective because, again, we want to raise awareness of the campaign, but it's also, it has another benefit. It is great for building pride, amongst the residents and local businesses. So again, lamppost banners, and we would want them to be really colorful. And there is, again, we always look at how can we monetize things. There's an opportunity to perhaps get someone to underwrite them. And also, again, the magnetic bumper stickers. We can even do some really fun things with social media. Like who is spotted at blah 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 with an Ossining bumper sticker. But it's really an inexpensive giveaway. So at all of your different events, you can just freely give out magnetic bumper stickers. And that's it. I'm open to any and all questions. I feel really confident that a campaign like this will really showcase Ossining in a very, very positive way, and get the word out and really reach your target audiences quite effectively.
Well, why don't we have the board ask questions before first? Do my colleagues want to kick it off, or?
I have just a few questions.
Sure.
Yes, please, Rachel.
So who is the target audience in all of this?
Well, the target audience is Ossining residents. It's also the businesses in Ossining, and it is people that we want to engage with Ossining. So it could be people in Westchester, and just speaking with Henry and learning that he recently moved up from Manhattan to Ossining, getting that reach out there. I know there's been some conversations that, Ossining is an affordable place to live. Why not get, the people that are living in Brooklyn up to Ossining and just make it, just a great place to live. So again, how we typically break down target audiences is primary, secondary, and tertiary. So again, the primary audiences, in my eyes view, is really the people that live here and do business here.
And I just want to clarify for Rick and anybody else, the Henry you're referring to is Henry Welt, who's the chair of the Ossining Arts Committee.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
So, if you don't mind me asking, so your primary audience to do all of this with is for people who live here to be proud to live here?
Yes, absolutely. It will no doubt create great pride amongst the members of the community.
And what will that serve?
Well, that I look at them as your ambassadors of the community, and spreading the word and the pride and the love of living and or doing business in Ossining.
Okay, it doesn't say that to me actually, so I'm just trying to understand how that comes about. So the tertiary part I get, somebody moved up here. So if the branding campaign was about why you would open a business here, rather than, I'm getting agreement, okay. I'm new to it, so I don't know if there were studies
I'm
done,
open,
and
sure.
focus groups, but that's a really expensive proposition to be proud of where you've already bought real estate and live. If you were to say that you want to bring people from Brooklyn and Lower County where it's become unaffordable, especially for younger people, and it's an affordable, then the branding of affordability actually speaks volumes to me, but that's not what that is, actually. So I'm actually trying to understand, like, if you get the target right, then the campaign's going to be phenomenal. If the target isn't really where we're at, it's like learning math equation. If the premise is off, the result is definitely going to be. So I'm just trying to get, like, where you guys are coming from and where you're going, because what you just said isn't what I actually just saw, so I just want to calibrate that it's accurate. That it's what I saw as a person that's seen it for the first time, frankly. I mean, I like living here. I've chosen to live here. I've chosen to stay here. I don't need campaigns for that. But telling me that there might be some branding to bring or to go somewhere else, there are towns that have branded themselves.
Yeah,
so I just wasn't getting that.
No,
but
and
that's
let
my
me
interest.
great comments. Appreciate your input. Let me just clarify that the campaign is absolutely to bring businesses and those people that would want to live in Ossining, without a doubt. But it is also, again, to create, a pride within the community.
I'm going to let other people speak so that I'm not the only one speaking here.
This is the first I've seen this. I mean, I think that on the face of it, I think that the notion of branding is something that's been discussed on, I'd have to say, numerous committees that I have been involved in, and I think we need to have that branding focus so we can drive it outside, not only within the community certainly, but outside the community.
Yes.
So people have a
Yes,
reason to
of
come
course,
here.
of course.
So on the face of it, I like the idea of creating a brand. I think that's something that's important. I think that Rika makes some good points about let's make sure that what we're driving towards, all the things that we're setting up to get to where we want to go make sense, and that things are in line, and that we're being smart and efficient and targeted. I think that's certainly an important part of it. So I need a little more time to digest this, but on the face of it, I think we need to do more. And I'd like to get input from other groups. To be honest, I've got an arts committee that I work with
Sure.
that's obviously would want to be engaged in this, and they've got their own branding that we're trying to do as well. So, and I know there are other groups that are involved in the village that would want to understand this better. Because I think at the end of the day, for it to work, everybody's got to
There
collaborate.
has to be engagement
Everybody
from
has to buy
a
in,
lot of
everybody has to
a
wanna be
lot of
about this.
buy-in.
Yeah,
Right.
so.
And it does, let me just clarify, it really starts more with an internal engagement. So, I may not be verbalizing correctly how campaigns are built. There's first buy-in from internal audiences, and then it goes outside.
Trustee Quesada?
Thank you for doing this presentation. I think I agree with my colleagues in regards to what we need. And I say what we need is what the Village of Austin needs. And yes, John, you are correct. We've been talking about branding, or how do we make ourselves as a unique place to be and to bring people into, either to live or bring businesses into, or just to stop by and see how great Austin is doing. So I think it is something that we definitely need. This is the first time I'm seeing this myself as well. So I think the path is there. We just have to make sure it's a clear path in how we're going to achieve the end result at the end of the day. So thank you.
I really like the tagline, Ossining, where culture lives. I think it speaks very much to who we are, who our demographics are, who our interests are, and I think it's broad enough that we can use it if we're talking about our restaurants, if we're talking about our downtown events, if we're talking about anything to do with
Right.
Ossining. I think it's broad enough, but yet very authentically reflective of who our community is. So I really like that off the bat, and it wasn't something that any of us came up with. So thank you for bringing that to us. I
Oh,
I do
course.
like that, and I think it has a lot of opportunity to be implemented in different ways. I also would love to see new banners. Our banners are getting a little tired looking, and it would be nice to have a cohesive message that really helps brand us to anybody who comes to our community. And when we talked about the audience and we've talked about branding, I think it is important that we have some sort of brand that is unquestionably accurately describes who we are.
Right.
And to me,
Right.
this really does. So I
Yeah.
like that. My goal would not be so much to sell real estate here, because quite frankly, we have a lot of people living here, and they bring their children to our wonderful schools, and they I'm not looking to sell real estate necessarily. What I want to do is I want everybody in Westchester to think of Ossining and think, oh, they've got great restaurants, they've got great events. I want to go spend my money there and then leave.
Right.
So that, not all of them. We welcome all of our newcomers. It's a wonderful place to buy property, and some of our newest residents are here with us and bringing great things to our culture. But that can't be the end of it. We can't have a thriving downtown if it's only the residents of Ossining who appreciate it. So it's really important that we brand ourselves to consumers outside
Right.
of our community. So that, to me, needs to be a
Yes.
priority of who we're
Absolutely.
targeting. What we didn't go into here, and would definitely be a consideration of this board, is this included in the cost of the annual contract? Obviously, purchasing magnets probably would be like a finite cost on top of that. But how much are we talking about in the current contract for the creation of the brand, for the creation of the video, for the establishing a launch event, and such?
Right, and the retainer is, as such, but there's certain projects, and we have created a proposal that we just sent to Abe yesterday. I'm not really prepared today to discuss numbers, but I can share with you that the video would be an extra cost. The lifestyle, the dining and entertainment book would be an extra cost. However, I've seen some of these books done in a way that they pay for themselves. So again, if there's a sponsor or it can get underwritten, that would be wonderful. And the logo cost would be an extra, but really very, very nominal. You definitely get friends and family. And again, we can have a separate meeting to go over the budget. Happy to do so. I just feel, again, this is just a proposed campaign. It was actually over lunch a couple of months ago, but I just really feel that it takes in all that Ossining has to offer. Are there things that need to be fine-tuned? Absolutely. And it's again, I think it has the makings of a great campaign, and it will allow Ossining to really put their stake in the ground. There's a lot of communities in Westchester, like Yonkers and New Rochelle, who have created, six-figure marketing campaigns, and again, I feel that this campaign, you could call it a tagline. This is something that can live on for some time, and that's what we look at when we create a campaign. Obviously, Ossining in 3D was just around the bicentennial, so we look at a stickiness factor that it will last and endure for some time.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I have a few comments that I want to make. I've been a part of this since, we actually came up with a concept at a lunch, as Stacy mentioned. But I think that this particular campaign, certainly does describe, as the mayor mentioned before, this is who Ossining is. There's a lot of culture here in every sense of the word. And one of the reasons that the room is filled tonight also is because I've invited many of the stakeholders from the village, because I want them to be a part of it. So this is the beginning of this process. And I think one of the things that I know we discussed when I also interviewed with the board before you hired me was the rebranding of the village. I think that the village for many years has suffered from an identity crisis, and because most people don't know that we're here. People know, Ossining is there, but really they really don't really know all the resources, all the wonderful things that are culturally driven that are here. And I think that this particular campaign would propel the village, beyond our borders. I think that the target is not just going to be, yes, the local residents, of course, because there are residents that really have never really been to Main Street. They commute to the city, and their life here in Ossining is rather not very committed, because they have no children in the school district, and that doesn't make it different. It doesn't make them not desirable residents, but I think that they don't get as involved as those that have children in the community. But I think this particular campaign will allow us again for us to propel ourselves beyond our borders, Westchester County, New York City, even out of state. If we do this right, and the reason that I haven't forwarded you the estimate that I got from Stacy is because I want to be able to get a partner that will pay for it 100%. There are many businesses in the community that will gain tremendously from a campaign that is successful. So my hope is to be able to engage these other entities and have them pay for it 100%. I've already spoken to one of them actually, and they're looking into the possibility of being able to fund a good portion of it. So I hope to be able to do this without spending any taxpayers' dollars. And again, this is just the beginning of the process. I think that with Harbor Square being, potentially being completed by the spring of 2016, I think it gives us enough time for us to be able to work together with GDC, also with the Downtown Economic Development Committee. We have the Arts Council. We have many of the Historical Society. I think we can include everybody in this process, because we're not going to be able to do it just the village. I think we need a lot of these stakeholders to be active participants and help us do what this campaign should be able to do. So, and the reason, by the way, that actually that 45-second commercial about Ecuador is, and I mentioned it to Stacy, the Super Bowl this past January of 2015, that commercial aired for 45 seconds. It became the most Googled place, for like several days after that. So, and the tourism increased in Ecuador also. So, I think that we will have to spend a lot of money to be able to air it on, national.
Say that's quite some sponsorship you got there.
But I think that
Super Bowl ad.
Super Bowl
Hey,
commercial.
we should aim big.
Wow. Restaurants are going to be packed.
So I think that the video that, if this campaign does go through, and I do hope it does, Could be actually something, again, that could be really depict the village, as the place that it really is to our neighboring towns and New York City and beyond. So,
And I just want to echo, because I don't believe I made myself clear, and you said it really well, Abe, is that the reason why when you start a campaign, it's really building blocks. And if you can't get the engagement of the internal stakeholders, it makes it that much more difficult to get it outside of the Ossining borders. So again, having these partnerships with your stakeholders are key, and even having, some town hall type of meetings, asking them, their input, and, if they have any recommendations or thoughts about the campaign, it's very important to invite them in from the get-go.
Yeah, so I guess that would be my question on what should be our next step. We have representatives here tonight, I see, from the Economic Development Council, from the Ossining Arts Committee, from the
Chamber.
from the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you. Hi, Gail. Good to see you. From the Historic Preservation Commission. So, and our village historian is here. We have, and also from the Sing Sing Prison Museum, which is obviously a big part of Ossining's culture. So. They're here tonight.
Yes.
Usually in work sessions, we don't have an actual sit down and have a conversation with everyone in the room. But what is the logical next step to be able to engage with these interested parties for how we may want to move forward with this?
what I would like to do, or I should say propose to the board, is for us then now to have just a work session in which we hash things out, we discuss things in detail, again, inviting all the representatives from the various groups in the community. I want to engage also with the school district and the library, because they're going to be also a big part of this, of this campaign, as well as the town of Ossining as well, of course. I mean, because, again, this is a community campaign, so.
Great.
So we can, if the board is okay with that, we can certainly maybe schedule meetings in which we can have everybody participate, whether, I mean, if you would like to, maybe, again, if the entire board is going to be there, we have to make it publicized or whatever, we can certainly have it with all of you present, but if there's maybe one or two of you that want to be there in part of this group, whatever you decide, certainly works.
With so many players, it seems like we'll have to circulate some dates. We probably won't put something on the calendar tonight. Do people have a strong feeling on it if we want to, if the entire board wants to be present? And if so, what's the timeline? Because we've got a lot of meetings in the next 6
Well, the
weeks.
timeline.
Well, the
if you can-
timeline is, if we want to launch this in the spring, I recommend we get a couple of meetings in by December, because in actuality, in December, we have to cement everything and, and then just move ahead, because January, February, March, April, if we had it in April, we're only talking about 4 months to gear up.
Yeah, we would have to move fairly quickly to circle the wagons here to get everybody in the room to get consensus. The problem is we're headed into the budget season, and we've got a lot of other meetings. So I think that trying to get everybody into the room on one date is probably very difficult. So,
Got a lot here right now.
well, I know, but we got lucky. I don't know, but I think the fact that everybody's in this room right now is a good thing. But at the end of the day, I think we need to try. It'd be great if we could all be in one room. We could try for that. But if we had to break it up into 2 meetings to gather input from these different groups and get their perspectives, I think that could be just as valuable. I think as long as there are 2 trustees in any of those meetings, that would work. It might be 2 trustees that are the same trustees that are at each meeting, just to have continuity from our perspective as a board. But if we are going to do it, we got to get those meetings done, because we have to back time to a date to do the launch. And if there's anything that's critical in doing this kind of publicity work and launching these things, is you have to have the time to set the table, to make the media contacts, to do all the other things to make sure that we create a roadmap to success. So that would be my opinion on, options in the way to put it together, so.
I also would say that getting ideas is fantastic. I think you'll get lots of ideas, because that's basically a laundry list of any marketing campaign. I mean, that's just a laundry list. It, to me, doesn't actually say a campaign. The one piece that does say a campaign is the tagline you came up with, is to focus on culture versus selling real estate. So that's like a stake in the ground that you could actually use. But you have to put dollar signs next to it, because without that, all of this, to me, is very difficult to make decisions. Because if I knew that, on this menu, 5 items would cost $1.5 million plus your fees and all this other stuff, I may make a different decision about the campaign than if it cost $100,000. If I knew that IBM was sponsoring it, fantastic. I might make different decisions based on that, because that's how I do my
Yeah.
house,
Oh,
right?
of
Like all of
course.
us.
Of
I mean,
course.
I'd like a really huge house with lots of land and the best of everything, until you tell me I have $10,000 to spend on it. Then I make a very different decision. So I think that's going to be really helpful. And for me,
No, yeah,
marketing
I get it.
is a total net zero game. Taxpayers should be paying for it. So I think it's really important to figure out how much
Yeah.
money it brings in. Not, so I think
Well,
that will be
right,
should be a part,
right.
not just a gathering of information.
I-
I'm sorry
I-
to focus so much on budgets.
No,
probably
no,
'cause
no.
It's that time of the
Look,
year.
look,
My head
it's-
is in that.
You know what, I'm also looking, and I think you can see from the presentation, how can we monetize these collateral materials? And in addition, that's another reason to start earlier, because if you start earlier, you have a higher likelihood of getting sponsors. Sponsors want to get plays, so if they're asked in, March to become a sponsor, they just have a very short timeline in which they're visible.
Okay, so probably we need to look at the numbers.
Yes,
and
yeah, I
then
will share that
we go
with you
from-
tomorrow, so.
Go from
we'll-
there and start setting up the date.
And perhaps we should take the show on the road, because you've identified, I think, 7 different organizations that we would want to
Yes.
incorporate in the planning process of how to really effectively do this. You got the Arts Council, Historic Preservation, and Economic Development Council, Sing Sing Prison Museum, the school district, the town, and the library. Maybe we could approach the schools about attending one of their meetings, which would be a public meeting, or maybe we could and invite all of the other parties to any of the public meetings, so that everyone when we go to the schools, they're probably going to feel greater ownership of that conversation, but everybody should be invited to all of them. And but I don't know how many
Well,
meetings are we talking about, and what are we hoping to accomplish with them? Because like
Right.
Rika said, we can do
Well, I
a
think
lot of
that's where I was
ideas.
going.
So if we have the numbers when we're going into it, yeah.
We have some hands at the back of the.
Yeah.
All right, so should we, can we invite the head? Okay, I guess I get to decide that. Gail Marchica, the president of the Good, can you come up and speak in the microphone at the, thank you very much. Since we're all here, let's,
Thanks for inviting us this evening, Abe. I appreciate the email. On behalf of the Chamber, I would like to offer possibly one of our meetings, our membership meetings. Certainly, we'd be happy to advertise that and put it out to the community at large, the business community, so that we could invite all of our contemporaries to also attend and see where we can go to launch this. I think it's a great idea, and we're happy to collaborate as usual and support this in any way we can, even monetarily.
How much?
See, I have about $10 in my pocket tonight. I don't know if that counts, but I'll write you a check tomorrow. So we usually meet at the end of each month. So if that works for you, and I know the holidays are coming up and such, so let us know.
If you can let me know the exact date, actually.
Yep,
that'd be
I
great.
could email you tomorrow
Perfect.
and let you know.
Thank you.
And this year is the Chamber of Commerce's 70th anniversary.
Wow.
happy birthday.
Thank you so much. So looking forward to working with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Henry, did you want to comment? You can, but you have to join us at the microphone so folks at home can hear you. We can hear you, but not on television, so don't want anyone to miss any of the fun.
Sure, my name is Henry Welt.
Oh,
I'm not going to sing. And I'm chair of the Village Arts Committee. But I don't want to be speaking on behalf of the committee, because We've not met. No one knew about it. So I'm just going to give personal comments, if I may.
Understood.
So I think we've kind of conflated two different concepts. I think there's a big difference between a branding campaign and between a branding effort and a campaign. And I think a branding effort is much too lofty and expensive a goal to undertake without any kind of definition or guidelines or things like that. I think a campaign is something that in my experience, is a limited exercise that's focused on a particular goal, and then you launch a campaign to achieve that. So I think if you took the various things on the laundry list that was, up on the board before, up on the screen before, and you choose any one of them, whether it's arts because I'm the chair of the committee, or whether it's arts because it's where culture lives, which is a great tagline, but I think we should just focus on one thing. It would limit the number of people that would have to meet in a short timetable that you have if you want to do something by the spring. It would dramatically limit the budget, and you could measure the results because you've targeted something. I think where I come from, brands are determined by the consumer. The company thinks it's going to send out a message, and this is a pushing effort that we saw before. It's someone coming up with a list of things that we want to say or don't want to say about Ossining. But Ossining is branded today. We just have to find out what it is before we start wanting to change it. Ossining clearly stands for something all over Westchester, all over the United States, and maybe beyond that. So it's a branded town. It's a branded town. It's a branded village. Just like every company has a brand, and it's determined by what its consumers think it stands for, not by what management thinks it stands for. And management's job is to align what it wants its message to be with what the consumers perceive it to be. That's what, and I think the brief for this would have to come, or should come, from you all. I mean, I think the village government ought to say, these are the needs that we want to service with a campaign. We want to get people between a certain age to eat in this town, or we don't. We want to get people of a certain age and demographic to think of homes in this town, or we don't. Whatever those goals are. And then we launch a campaign to service those goals, and it makes a big difference in what the campaign is going to look like. It's a very different pitch to a 32-year-old couple with 3 kids to want to come and visit our town who live elsewhere than it is to get pride within the community. They're two different things. You can't have the same campaign, in my judgment, working well to accomplish both goals. So I think, I don't want to keep on going on about it, but I think we should really consider scaling back the scope of this thing and doing a campaign that would be focused on any objective that the Board of Trustees determines it should be. I think the objective should come from the village, and the PR and advertising people ought to deliver a campaign that is designed to meet that objective. I don't think one goes to an advertising or a PR person and says, give me an objective. I think it ought to come from us. So that's my contribution. Or not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Did you want to follow up on that, Rika? It looked like you're about to speak.
No, I totally understand what he's saying. He wants measurements, and I think we all understand that. I think other people have their hands up.
Deborah, would you like to join us? Deborah Van Steen? Are you representing HPC at the moment?
I'm representing everybody, including myself.
The world.
I just, in thinking what Henry said and what Rika said earlier, I go back to a campaign that we had here in the village after urban renewal to try to make things whole, and it was something like old in history, new in spirit, if I have that right. Mm-hmm. And it actually kind of backfired to a certain extent because it conveyed a message of something that Ossining didn't deliver. And so when people came up the river and visited downtown and didn't find the things that were being advertised in that, they became disappointed. And so it hurt our reputation instead of enhancing it. So I think that with what Henry was saying about we have a presence and we have to figure out what that is and how to approach defining that and making it a place that not only brings new people in, but when they get here, their expectations are met is really important. Thank you.
Okay. Well, any decision-making in village government has to be a balance between hemming and hawing and debating and having meetings and listening to ideas and then moving forward and making a decision. And we're still trying to find that balance. And we've been talking about a branding effort, I guess, since Old in History, Young in Spirit. I'm not sure what the next step is.
I think we need to sleep on this. You know, I don't think we're going to.
That's always a good next step.
Well,
yes.
no, I just, you know, we've ingested a lot of information here, and this has certainly piqued my interest. The other comments that we've heard, obviously there's support for the notion of this, but I think we need to take a step back and take a moment and you know, maybe have some other conversations, and you know, maybe in a week's time from now, maybe by our next meeting, we'll have a notion of what's going on. You know, I think this is great. I think this is something we need to consider. We need to look at it, but I think trying to execute anything right at this meeting might not be the best idea. So
I would just add to that since there's so many people here who have had some history and opinions and sort of aren't representing their groups, but might if they spoke to their group, you know, I think emailing us with, you know, I wish I would have asked you this, or just consider that, might just be helpful as far as emails, because if everybody's just seen this for the first time, how could you possibly have had any time to even think about anything except to react to the slides? I don't. I mean, so I think we should just encourage that as creating like an
absolutely,
email
yeah.
chain, or not a chain of conversations, but input. And if you have thoughts about who else should be asked, it's difficult to get lots of opinions, right? Because the more opinions, the farther along this. It'll take so long to get this off the ground, so there's always a trade-off in that. But we do want to have a wide breadth of input.
Is there a way to get this, I came in a little bit late, because I thought it wasn't going on the agenda a little later. But is there a way, is there a way to get a PDF of the presentation, so because I missed a few of the early slides?
Sure thing.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Before we send PDFs, some things we haven't, I mean, it's on, is it being televised?
Yes,
So
it's
is
being
that on
televised.
there
It's-
as well?
Well, it's a matter of public record now that it's been televised,
Right.
so
Okay.
perhaps it could be
We
forwarded.
We can also post the PowerPoint on.
How
on
about
the
just
That'd be
do
great.
that? Let's just do a post.
That's
it.
what
So
I-
post it
that's
on
what I was
the
going
website.
for, thanks.
We'll post the
There you
PDF
go.
on the
Right.
website, and I think that's a great suggestion, Rika, for a follow-up. Everybody gets to sleep on it, whether you're watching at home or you've been sitting in the room. And an easy way to email all four of us is bot@villageofossining.org. That gets the whole board, bot@villageofossining.org. And to include the village manager, it's azambrano@villageofossining.org. Suddenly I forgot it, azambrano@villageofossining.org. So we look forward to hearing from you and hearing your reactions once you've all had a chance to think on it, watch the video again, talk to your friends, have
Go
a
to
meeting with your
Ecuador.
committee, whatever. Go to Ecuador, yeah. Henry?
Can I just ask one question? Is it anticipated that this campaign would be bilingual? If it's towards the...
Henry, that's a great question, but that's the kind of thing that maybe we can follow up with. Okay. Well, the question was, might it be bilingual, and I think that makes an awful lot of sense, but we'll have to, address that with moving forward. Good?
Anything else?
Yeah.
Well,
No,
Thank
I
you.
think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Thanks.
Stacy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next on the agenda, we want to talk to the board about the retirement reporting for elected officials. You know that this is something that I asked the village treasurer and the personnel director, Linda McMahon and Tom Warren, to be here and talk to the board about the requirements that the retirement system has for elected officials as we report not only to the retirement system itself, because I'm assuming that all of you are in the system, but also with the Affordable Care Act, actually, there's a certain, there's reporting that has to be done in which we have to actually make sure that, that the hours that you work are being properly reported as the Affordable Care Act goes more into effect. I guess with all the provisions being, enforced for 2018. So I've asked, again, Village Treasurer Thomas Warren to talk to the board about this.
Good evening. Welcome, Village Treasurer Thomas Warren.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Board of Trustees, and thank you for allowing us to talk about this important topic on the work session agenda tonight. And actually, I did want to provide some background and perspective as to why this really is important. And we're really talking about, the minutia of what eventually becomes retirement system pension benefits for retirees. And there's two components. One is the salaries, and the other is the number of years of service, both of which are reported to the retirement system monthly as part of our payroll process. And back in 2008, the retirement system had actually cracked down, especially on professional services, such as accountants, engineers, and attorneys, mostly because there's a question as to whether or not these professionals were really employees of local governments or whether or not they were outside contractors. And then they also kind of extended this to elected officials when they, were actually developing criteria for employees versus outside contractors, and also providing criteria for establishing the number of years of service. And so that's really what we're here to talk about tonight, is the, the standard workday and the amount of retirement system credit to be established for the elected officials. But of course, the appointed officials, Abe Lorley and myself being appointed officials, we're also part of this process in a bit of a different way. And back in January, when we had last discussed this, and at that time, we did pass an updated resolution for the manager, Corporation Counsel, and myself to clarify the retirement system standard workday for us at the request of the retirement system. And at that time, we did decide that although it wasn't necessarily required, the entire village board was going to be subjecting themselves to the process of maintaining the record of activities. And that's one of the things that came out of this prior investigation on professional services, is that the retirement system requires elected and certain appointed officials to maintain a record of activities, where they basically maintain a log of the work that they perform on their official duties, and for a period of 90 days, and it's supposed to be within the first 150 days of taking office or being reelected. And then after this period of time to accumulate the information, then the board, looks at it and makes determinations as to, how many equivalent workdays will be granted to the each individual official based on the record of work activities that was submitted. And this was a big change. Previously, the board just had to establish a standard workday for a type of position, like trustee. There's 4 different trustees, and the board could just establish a standard workday for trustees, regardless of how many hours that they put in. And that's when the village had adopted 60%, meaning that for every 10 days paid on the payroll, a trustee would get 6 days credit towards the pension. And now these new requirements in 2009 requires that every trustee and the mayor, all elected officials and certain appointed officials, have to stand on their own in terms of number of days credit to be granted for retirement system purposes. So that's where we stand. Just wanted to give an update on the process and see if the board is ready to submit the record of activities for this process to adopt a new resolution to establish the standard workdays for the elected officials. And Trustee Levin, being a new trustee, you would have to start your 90-day calendar at this time for the next 3 months since you joined the retirement system. Unless it was felt that the upcoming process, the upcoming few months was not representative of your duties, throughout the entire year because you're getting involved in the budget. But, we kind of talked tonight, or at least the board did, that, during the budget process, sometimes other things get set aside. So, this might be a representative period of time for the board as well.
We do get to take a week off in December. Tom, thank you very much for coming tonight. It's particularly, I imagine this is all new to you, Trustee
Yeah,
Levin,
I'm
and what the
waiting for you to
process
give
is.
me a form.
Right, so
Here you go.
Tom, the last time we did this as a board, to my recollection, was in the middle of 2013. And I remember very studiously going through my calendar and identifying every hour that I may have been working on my computer or visiting somebody in the community or whatever, and came up with some bizarre accumulation of hours during a 3-month period in my first year as trustee. And that percentage of employment is still in effect unless and until we update it.
So I mean, I guess that's my, I'm sorry. I didn't
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, so I know that earlier this year, you sent us a few different templates that we could use as examples, what we did in the past or what others did in the past, and we can use that as an Excel spreadsheet to give us an idea of how to account for our hours over a 90-day period. If you could send those to those of us who maybe didn't do our homework at the time that it was originally asked, now that you're coming to us and reminding us of the potential importance for this, and as well as instructing our new trustee, that would be really helpful.
Well, I guess I was going to say that I had filled that form out, I guess, whenever the last time you had formally asked me.
It was 2013.
Right, so,
I think.
I mean, I honestly don't remember what I filled out because it was in 2013, but I would imagine that what I put down then would reflect probably my same feelings now. This is not a linear job. We're not punching a clock here. There are times when I'm really engaged and I'm putting a lot of time in. A lot of these things have to do with the activities of government and the things that come to me or the things that I'm choosing to come to the board with. I guess what would be instructional for me is if I could see the document that I had created back in 2013, if that's still available, and then I would be happy to reflect on that and obviously put down another 90-day calendar for you to maybe reevaluate.
Right.
I mean, is it necessary that they be the same, or could they be different now? I mean, is that the whole point, that there's sort of a reassessment of this time?
Actually, after this process is done, the board can opt to continue that time period for up to 8 years if they feel that their time spent on the job is still representative of what that original estimate was, or actually not original estimate, but the actual.
Yeah, because I put down what my
time
time was
Yes.
during that period in 2013. So I guess if I can see that would be most helpful to me.
Does the entire, my time is not the same as it was 2 years ago,
Right.
so I would definitely want to update mine. Does that mean that the entire
uses
board
less?
has to? Yeah, right. Does that mean that the entire board has to update their time, or can we just say Victoria Garrity's time as of 2015 is now this?
If the other trustees do not wish to update their time because they feel that what was reported previously is still representative and it's still within the 8 years, which it is, they can continue to have that amount of days worked still reported to the retirement system.
Yeah, so I guess then my request still stands. If you could send me the document from 2013, I'll be able to review it and see if that's still reflective of my current hours of participation in village government.
So Tom, thank you for reminding us about that important part of our job. When is that due?
I think June.
Well, you know, you yourself are in a unique situation because I believe you're up for reelection this November. So you could continue to use the time that you calculated back in 2013, and then come January 2016, if you're on the board, you could decide, you know, since you are taking office again, you could decide to maintain another calendar, or you could continue to utilize the time that was calculated in 2013 if you still feel that it's relevant.
I'll be sending you one. I have, actually, believe it or not, I do recall the form that you emailed it to us a while back, and I had a whole weekend that I think I'm probably missing like maybe 10 days out of that, so I can definitely, I'll be emailing you the updated form. Thank you, Tom. And the numbers have changed a lot.
So trustee
getting the same
Quesada
form.
could update for 2015 now, and then would he,
I'll be doing a new one.
would that, you'd still have to do another one in 2016?
No, he
I
says
I would
they have
say
8
that if you
years.
do it,
Okay.
I would say that if you do it now, you know, and it's, you know, compare it to what you did previously, you know, and then after you know, take office again at the beginning of 2016, you could decide whether or not you want to do another calendar or whether or not you want to continue to use the one that you're going to start right now.
Well, from 2013, because I remember having a copy when that was submitted back then to the time that I have spent in the village doing a trustee function. It has definitely, it did increase on my end. So I would like to update that part. So I apologize, I did not send it early, but I will do it this week. Okay.
Okay, so, thank you very much. I believe that Tom actually did send us our 2013 paperwork earlier this year when we were originally
Really?
given this assignment.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this spring.
And I missed it? I never miss it.
I know, well, we needed a reminder, I guess, and now we're getting it, so thank you very
We're
much.
tardy.
On the
Tom.
document
It's
that's on the
terrible.
agenda packet for tonight, and I'll send it again, is the resolution from 2013.
It is.
It has the resolution in which the board established the number of standard workdays for every individual at that time that was on the board in 2013. And I'll also send you the Excel template. That's a nice
Yes, that would be
summary
helpful.
version to,
But
you know.
do you have the actual template that we filled out?
Yes, you know, they still exist because they were filed with the clerk's office. You know, it's a public record, and it's there in the clerk's office for inspection, or if the state retirement system, you know,
Right.
wants to inspect them as well.
Great.
Tom, I just wanted to congratulate you on your putting together the budget thing for the state, combined, doing that stuff with the town. I just want to thank you for that. That takes a huge amount of pressure off of the village manager and village government, you know, to be able to, you know, really collaborate with the town and make that happen. And really, it was really impressive. I remember when you presented it to us, and you really put us in a great spot. And it's going to make our budget process a lot easier, and we're thankful for that.
And it also benefits the residents and taxpayers.
Absolutely.
Because it's part of the
Without question.
process to get the tax incentive
Right.
credit or payment sent from the state to the residents and taxpayers.
Right. So
Yes.
people are going to get their checks, right? Or
Yes.
are they gonna, I guess they're going to get a credit now, right? They changed
Right.
they changed the game, right? It
Yes.
used to be that you're going to get sent a check, and then they realized how expensive it was going to be
Right.
for the state to send out individual checks for $600.
We don't know what Albany's going to do. What they did last year, it started with the school district, and people who live in the Assoning School District did get a check.
Right.
Either last November, December, or this January, it eventually arrived. And that was a check from the state because the school district stayed within their tax cap. And this year, it's the second year of the school district check, so assuming that the school district is still in keeping with that tax cap limit. Because we submitted this report,
Government
the-
efficiency plan.
thank you, sir, that Tom guided us through. It was really very helpful. Thank you for working so closely with the town and the village to present something that Albany couldn't possibly resist. And so this year, when the taxpayers get their money back, it will reflect whatever they're due from the school district similar to last year, and it'll be even more generous from the state because it'll include a rebate from the village and from the town because...
And the county.
And the county, because we've all gone through this process. And thank you very much for making that happen for us.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank you.
Really exciting holiday shopping for everyone.
Linda, would you like to add anything to what was already said, or?
It's just as a complementary to the calendar keeping, it also assists the village in maintaining its compliance with the new requirements under the Affordable Care Act. As you may recall, all employees who aren't on our typical timekeeping system are required to be tracked, and that would be our seasonals, part-time, and trustees and mayor and appointed officials kind of fit into that, and that gets tracked into a new software program that we're keeping an eye on to make sure we do maintain compliance, and also it gives us a little bit of a heads up in the event there is an issue. So it's all tying into the bigger picture of ensuring compliance with the new mandates for 2015 and 16.
Then let me just touch base with you. I don't know if the Affordable Care Act creates a different threshold for currency in that. So, for example, if Trustee Codman says, hey, you know, my numbers in 2013 still stand in 2015. I've taken a look at them. It's within the 8 years. That's good for the retirement system. Is that still acceptable for the Affordable Care Act demands, or does everybody need to be updated, even if it's just to say, yes, it's the same thing it was 2 years ago?
It's not based on having to update it. It's
Okay.
just really to make sure that what is reported is tracked. Basically, that's what it amounts to. The definition of full-time under the Affordable Care Act is 30 hours. So if an employee works less than 30 hours, we don't have an obligation to provide health coverage. There's also the affordability factor. So all of that comes into consideration based on what the audit shows, and that would be if someone has the potential to go over that 30-hour threshold, we get those reports monthly, so then we could actually take a look at it and see if this is a situation where perhaps someone should be told that under even civil service law, they're not supposed to exceed a certain number of hours, or if truly there is a need to look at the position and say there's either a second person or this person, you know, needs to be adjusted somehow. But the main thing is that our audit comes back that we are in compliance with offering health care coverage at an affordable rate to those who qualify.
But let me ask you a question, because with trustees, that 30-hour mark could be significant. So if we have a trustee who, let's say, is accounting, you know, can track less than 30 hours
Yes.
a week, and they choose not to get health care,
Yes.
No
That is
problem.
not an issue because
Okay.
then.
what if they work 35 hours a week and they choose not to get health care?
It doesn't matter either. It's the fact that it's offered, and all of the trustees, regardless of the number of hours that you do work, is offered the opportunity to have health insurance. It then just becomes the affordability factor that
Okay.
we would be most concerned with.
Okay. Any more questions?
Good clarification.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
Next item on the agenda, we have the T-Mobile cell site recertification, and Corporation Council will address that with the board.
Okay.
So this is under Chapter 246 of the Village Code. Earlier today, I sent out both a PDF of Section 246-21, which is the recertification of a special use permit. This is a special use permit that is under the purview of the Village Board of Trustees. There are rules every 5-year anniversary date. There are rules in your code which requires mandatory reporting, and then it actually necessitates your discussion at work session and then eventually a resolution granting the recertification of the special use permit. This evening we have from the law firm of Snyder & Snyder, actually a current colleague of mine, Cara Bonamolo. She's here representing the interests of T-Mobile. And she can walk you through the two submissions. We had one submitted late last year. I believe it was on for a brief discussion last October, but I think in order to clear the decks and to complete the process, we can address both of them and then proceed to the resolutions as needed. She can walk you through her submissions, and then I can answer any questions as it relates to the code. I did send it out electronically and also in a PDF version for you. It's section 246-21 of the Village Code. Welcome, Kara.
Thank you. Good evening. As Ms. Dixon indicated, we are here this evening on 2 requests for recertification of T-Mobile's existing special use permits for 2 existing wireless communications facilities within the village. The first is an existing facility that's co-located on the water tank at 56 Browning Drive. This was a special permit that was originally granted in February of 2006 and was subsequently recertified by resolution dated February 3rd, 2011. There are no changes proposed as part of this recertification request. We merely made the request in order to comply with your code requirements. And in support of that request, we did submit a structural certification that certifies the facility continues to meet all local, county, state, and federal structural requirements for loads, including wind and ice loads. We also submitted an RF compliance assessment and report that certifies that the radio frequency emissions levels generated by the facility are in compliance with the FCC's requirements regarding radio frequency emissions.
And you'll also know in the covering letter, they reference minor building permits. As you know, like-kind exchanges, the policy of the village is to send those directly. And I understand from the carriers that they appreciate this. That goes directly to the building permit process. Like-kind exchanges are actually reviewed by our own consultant in accordance with a minor escrow arrangement with the carriers themselves.
The second application that we're here on tonight is for an existing facility co-located on the roof of the existing building at 117 South Highland Avenue. That special permit was originally granted in February of 2005 and subsequently recertified in October of 2010. Like the last application, we have submitted a structural certification certifying that the facility continues to meet all local, county, state, and federal structural requirements for loads, including wind and ice loads. And we've submitted an RF compliance assessment and report that certifies that the radio frequency emission levels generated by the facility are in compliance with the FCC's requirements regarding such emissions.
And again, this was also the subject of minor alterations, like-kind exchanges. As the updates occur across the board with new antenna replacement becomes necessary, and so that's what the building permit that's referenced as B120438.
You know, could you describe for me? I know exactly the one is on Browning Drive because I can see it from my children's bedroom window. The one on South Highland Avenue, can you describe for me where it is? Because it looks like it's on an apartment building.
It is on an apartment building.
Okay. Across from Nelson Park.
Yes.
So that's on private property?
Yes.
And that's not a concern. Obviously, it's been addressed.
Yes, the lease is in place. There's been no change. If there was a change in that relationship, that would have to be reflected in the recertification.
So the lease is between whom?
The lease is between the carrier and the private property owner. There's also another one just up the street here on Croton Avenue, in the apartment complex just up the hill. We have three sites in Ossining that are all co-location sites, 2 of which are on private property, 1 of which is on village-owned property at Browning Drive at the old water tank.
So the village-owned property is an income to the village?
Correct.
And the other is an income to private citizens?
Correct.
But they still have to come in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's obvious.
Yeah.
But have there been any complaints or any issues from neighbors that we should know about? Since that's not a part of your information, right?
No, it's not part of our information, but the antenna site FCC compliance assessment and report would cover the complaints. Usually they're complaints associated with just simply the fact that the antennas are located on the roof. We're limited in the scope of our review because this is a public utility, and a public utility use, and it's afforded even most recently under a court case and then regulations that have been enacted which afford wide latitude to the public utilities of this nature. And so therefore, we're limited in the amount of information we can request. Any complaints on the antennas, that would come through the manager's office and appropriately discussed, but I'm not aware of anything that's come through. This is a structural certification and your FCC compliance assessment, which is what your code requires.
Any questions?
Yeah, I was just going to say that these towers are also, there's other things that are on these buildings. I mean, certainly on the water tower, there's other emergency relays and other things that exist. I don't know what's going on with the other properties, but I know that these types of communication relays are really part of a communications infrastructure that is supported by the FCC.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, as much as there have been questions about where these things would be located and what the emissions would be and other issues, it's sort of the balance here between having a hardening of our communications network and having the ability for people to get service.
And the level of detail and information submitted with the original certifications were of that level. Proof of the lease, proof of, that they had permissions and all of those things were in place. This, because it's a recertification every 5 years, requires that that nothing that's come after is now compromised the structure, and nothing that comes after is, in a comprehensive way, exceeded the standard requirements set by the FCC on the national level.
Any further questions? Comments?
No, I think that, we've seen at least 2 of these before in the past. There has never been an issue. There's not really any changes on this, unless you're putting a huge, big antenna, which I'm sure
We're not
neighbors
proposing
would.
any changes as
That's
part of
right.
this request.
And any changes would have to come separately, and the 2 minor changes, one on each of these, were addressed by building permits issued after our own consultant, qualified specifically with telecom installations, had reviewed them.
Yeah, that was my only other question, making sure that the building department had sort of verified everything. And
Yes.
gone
We had brought this forward when we hired that telecom consultant. They work only on the municipal side, and we had actually discussed this a number of times with the board over the years, that because the building inspectors didn't feel they were qualified necessarily to review something so technical, we have an actual engineer review these on behalf of the village and provide very detailed site analysis and comprehensive memo to the building inspectors, including conditions, signage and limitation on access, and all of that stuff is included when they review the proposed building permits.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us for this Wednesday evening meeting. Kara?
Thank you for having me.
Topic is deliberations, which are necessary on introductory local law number 7. And these were traffic and vehicle law revisions having to do with clarifications of parking. So there were a number of items that had been pointed out that were mistakes, mistaken references, mistaken spellings, avenue when it should be road, circle when it should be terrace, and those were the kinds of things we fixed. And also, there was a question on Van Cortlandt Avenue about the overnight parking. And when we had done the research, if you recall, there had been discussions at previous board meetings many years ago, but the matter was tabled and did not make its way to actual legislation. So what mistakenly had happened were signs were taken down when there was no legislation to support the signs being taken down. So now we're clarifying. It was a right hand, left hand. I'm not really sure, but we confirmed in the minutes that the matter was tabled, and there's no evidence that a local law was ever drafted based upon the discussion. It was tabled at the public meeting on October 7th, 1997, and it never resulted in legislation yet. The police department thought it had and removed the signs inadvertently. So what we're trying to do is clarify for everyone's benefit that the parking is, of course, prohibited on the south side of Van Cortlandt Avenue, the entire length, from North Highland Avenue all the way up. And that we're also removing the first part of the prohibition because it's redundant to again, this is another example of a redundancy. It's redundant to say from North Highland to a point 58 feet east thereof, because there's the no parking from here to corner requirement, which is mandated, and then there's a driveway and a parking lot. So we've taken that out completely, and it's clear from the site conditions what is needed. And then we're adding the 361 feet east, because that's that dangerous curve, and there's always been no parking signs there, again, without the benefit of legislation. So this is making it apparent and clear. And then Cortlandt Avenue, avenue was the wrong word, it needed to be Cortlandt Place. And then where the sign is located is 50 feet from there, from the intersection with Cortlandt Place. So those are the changes that you're doing on Van Cortlandt. And then you had a question about Walden Road?
Right.
Right. Because the problem was we're adding, there are signs there, and inadvertently, again, it didn't make its way into the code that there is overnight parking permitted on one side of Walden Road, the side opposite the high school, not on the same side as the high school. So that was the east side. And then the most recent correction to that was that it's Underhill Road on the east side of Walden at the intersection, and Wilton is on the west side of. So that change was made most recently, and that's why you have a version that's dated 10/6/15. That was as a result of comments made by a resident on Ellis.
I guess my question was, I understand why we were so specific, because I was more aware of the points where parking was and wasn't allowed on Van Cortlandt by law. With Walden Road, I have not gone out and seen what 58 feet north of Emilton Place looks like. I'm familiar with the 200 feet south of Overton. I know that there's a no parking area there sometimes.
Yes.
So it's not always abided by. 200 feet sounds like an awful lot. Do you know why it is that the 200 feet in that spot? Is it a visibility thing, or is it
I believe that these
access to the high school?
These points were. I think that there was actually a place of worship on that street at one point,
It's now a private home.
Yes, it's now a private home. So what we're clarifying is the location of the signs that have been there, and that didn't make their way into the code for one reason or another. So there was an explanation from the police department when I asked to clarify this. I had asked Paul's staff is always so kind to go out and do the lasering and to do the measurements and draw me maps. So this is all based on actual in-the-field measurements. And there's an intersection there.
Yes, it's the corner of Overton. It's right across from the high school parking lot. Is that the house of worship argument no longer makes sense? Is the reason why we're continuing to not have parking there because of the access to the high school parking lot, the turning radius that might be necessary? I'm just not sure. Or do we just not want to change anything at this time because we haven't considered changing it?
I don't.
I'm sorry to bring this up now. I just hadn't.
Honestly, don't.
I regret that I didn't pay closer attention to the particular feet that are identified so specifically.
I'm just looking to see if I have the drawing. I do have the drawing. There's a no parking zone. You're right. According to the drawing as prepared by our DPW folks, and you can see it's very detailed. You can see that it is directly across from the high school parking lot, and there's a 200-foot space from Overton along the overnight. A lot of these places were established based upon the needs in the neighborhood, so it could have been that there there was no need for that area. We had to accommodate a certain number. It's really the housing stock that kind of dictates where we locate the waiver availability areas.
There are buses that also go in and out of the high school.
Yes,
park.
out of the
I
high
think
school parking lot.
That's more than likely, and I don't have all the specifics, but I think
Okay.
logistically speaking, that will be the reason why there's no parking in front of the
Yeah.
entrance to the high school.
Right.
It just
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense to have that.
Then I understand 20 feet north to Walden Road, the 20 feet north to Overton,
Mhm.
a point 20 feet north of Overton Road to Ellis Place, parking is permitted.
Yes.
Is the 20 feet, is that just a standard distance?
That is the standard distance. And because we're measuring it from Underhill to Ellis, we have to establish a point where it picks up again. So that's why that specificity is in there.
It actually says Emmleton on my copy, but on the east side of that intersection, it is Underhill.
Right, you're looking at the wrong version.
All right, I'm looking at what was emailed to me with the agenda.
This is the version 10.615.
I'm looking at 10.115.
Okay?
Okay. So it's,
That was the only correction made between 10.1 and was a correction to, based
it.
upon a resident's comment that it was east and west. The west side is Wilton, the east side.
and that is a correct correction. Okay. Yes,
If I
please.
may. Yeah, I'm all in favor of, correcting, and fixing this, because it's obviously, it wasn't right as it was written. The larger question, I think, for me, is one of the comments that came up at the public hearing last week with regards to the challenges of parking in general on Van Cortlandt and everything else. One of the suggestions was kind of interesting, which was that maybe we ought to think about putting the parking on the south side of Van Cortlandt instead of the north side, because we'd be able to put more cars there because there wouldn't be driveways. And I think that merits some evaluation because of the parking issue that we have there. Obviously, the property owners that had visitors that wanted to park on the street, across the street from them, that would perhaps be challenging for them, but I think most of them have driveways. But at the end of the day, I think we need to evaluate, we somehow as a municipality need to do something about the parking issue there if we can. And, I think I'm happy to pass this law as revised because it needs to address reality, which is what it hadn't been before. So, but I think the larger question for me is, do we have any other parking options for Van Cortlandt to deal with the issue at the, I'm sorry, what's the name of the rental property there? I can't
Cortlandt
remember.
Ridge.
Cortlandt Ridge, yeah. The clear challenges that the management company has there, given the change of the profiles of the people that are renting there, when they, and of course, that structure was built under guidelines that we had no control over because it was, I believe it was a state constructed, low-income workforce housing in the very beginning. So that's all I wanted to comment on. It was that in as much as we're changing this law, we're still going to get complaints, and we're still going to have to deal with this, in the future. So.
Right. This law is not addressing
The larger-
ongoing
yeah.
larger concerns. It's
Yeah,
really just,
yeah.
as you said, reflecting the reality
yeah.
so that the law is actually consistent with the signage. And
Well, if you would prefer, we could remove Section 1 and pass sections, which is specifically dealing, in light of the comment and in light of your opinion that we should look at maybe moving it and restriping the road, because we would need to restripe to move the center line to the other.
I mean, that can be a longer-term issue that we look into. I feel like right now, the
Yeah, we
law
gotta
doesn't
fix the- we gotta
reflect
right
the
the wrong
the
here.
status quo, so we should have the law reflect the status quo, and then if we want to change it, then that's a longer-term discussion with the
Offering it
police
as an
and
option.
DPW.
Next year?
Well,
Literally.
not next week.
No.
So,
And I actually gonna agree with John, because, for the past 2 weeks, I was thinking about that, actually the past week, I was thinking about the same comment, and I drove there, and I just Googled the map, the aerial view and everything. And I guess it's different options, but I also recall we having a meeting in another area where we are looking to a parking as a bigger issue, not just for a specific area, but throughout the village of Austin. So we are working on that process, and we'll have something, I don't want to say shortly, but we're definitely going to have something put together, hopefully by early next year. And that should be, clear up some of the confusion of how much is 25 feet, how long is 100 feet from my corner to where I can allow to park and things of that nature. So I think that'll be kind of useful in a way for a lot of members of the community itself. And we can definitely take a look. I don't know if that would be a possibility to take a look at that as a possibility to do it on the south side of Van Cortlandt and then the other side. But I agree, we should just pass this law and then just go forward with the next steps, and where would that take us? So.
did you want to comment, Trustee Lowe? Okay. Yeah, it is a tricky balance on how much parking do we want to encourage or do we want to permit in any given neighborhood. And I'll just say that, as was pointed out, when it was Claremont Gardens and it was built as affordable housing in a different era. And there was adequate parking at the time for the residents of that community at the time. Some years ago, the property was purchased, and it became Cortlandt Ridge, and it has been moving apartment by apartment from affordable housing to market rate housing, and there are a lot more vehicles. And that was a business decision by the folks who purchased that property, and they no longer have adequate parking on site for the residents. And so they're looking to the village to help them make this work. So it's tricky, because the people who live in the neighborhood that had nothing to do with that property being built or that property changing its demographics, they're impacted by these decisions as well. So for now, I wouldn't want to rush into changing the status quo. The fact that the status quo was, for many years, not being reflected, not consistent from the law and the signs, I'm glad that we're bringing that up to be more accurate. Thank you. All right. Thank you. So this will be on next week's agenda for us.
Would you like to call for a resolution adopting? Okay.
Please.
Yeah, sure.
All right, and it will be as revised, effective 10/6/15.
Great.
Which reflects the change from M. Wilton to Underhill.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
And I would like to just add one thing. Once we bring back those other changes to the parking local laws, actually, one of the things that I know we've discussed with you in the past also is you are going to be able to designate some of that responsibility to the village manager, so that we will we'll certainly keep you updated on any changes that have to do with parking, but I think it will remove the legislative portion that's, it's very time-consuming, in the future, so we can make minor changes. And then you can then decide at that point too, how much of that responsibility you want to give to the manager, so.
But for smaller items, it would help streamline the process.
Exactly,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes,
So-
understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So actually, the first item, as I mentioned before, we were anticipating being able to, for the engineer that we hired for the Main Street and Spring Street intersection, to get here, but there's been, so I asked that we table this item until we can have him at the work session.
Yes.
So I'm sure the village engineer is happy about that, so.
I would actually say, I don't know what next week looks like, but I know we have a legislative session, but we could move into a special session or whatever, or do it in continuing business or something. If he's able to join us for next week, I think that should be a consideration.
schedule it,
Because I
sure.
know that the next work session is at the library, and we have a tighter timetable, so I wouldn't
Yes.
want us to rush through it. It's an important topic.
Very good.
All right, so with that, are we,
We're
we're ready to adjourn
adjourn.
into executive session. Thank you very much for joining us for this week's work session, and we look forward to following up on many of these issues next week. May we have a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss pending legislation and personnel for a specific person?
So move.
Second?
On the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you very much for joining us. Please join us next week. We will be at the Birdsall-Fagan Courthouse on Spring Street at 7:30 for our October 21st regular meeting. Good night.